And good morning, everyone. As Betty said, my name is Brian Kahn. I'm a board member with Connect Summit County, as most of you know, and maybe there are some new ones that are new to learning about Connect. Our mission is to create a well-informed, stigma-free community with access to mental health resources for everyone. And again, welcome to our meeting of the minds, impact of mental health on our workforce. Before I jump into it and introduce our panels and panelists and give a brief introduction to what we'll be talking about, I do want to give a shout out and a thank you to the Park City Board of Realtors Philanthropic Foundation for sponsoring Utah State of Mind. Generous support on their part and provides resources to connect so we can make a difference in 2021 and beyond. All right. Jumping in to today's conversation, we're going to be talking about our workforce and sustainability. So we'll come from sustainability from two standpoints, one from the business and the operators out there in our community, and then how can they help to create a more sustainable workforce when it comes to mental health awareness and education and resources. There was a survey done back in July of 2020, Summit County Mental Wellness Alliance 2020 Provider Survey, which covered and came out with numbers. 90%, nearly 90% of clinicians within Summit County see clients who self-pay, and that going rate is well over $100 per session. So with this knowledge, that's where we're going to kind of start today, is how are we working with employers and other shareholders in keeping our employees in the service industry mentally healthy. With that, I'm going to introduce our panel. So we'll begin with Jennifer Wesselhoff, relatively new to Park City, President and CEO of the Park City Chamber of Commerce. Welcome. Corey Levy, thank you. Corey Levy, clinical psychologist with Vail Resorts, a senior manager of wellness. Corey is based in Broomfield, where Vail Resorts has their headquarters, but travels to all of the resorts. Welcome, Corey. And John Kenworthy, known as JK around town, owner of Flanagan's on Main Street and involved an integral figure in our Main Street business community. Welcome, JK.
Thank you, Brian. I'm very proud to be invited to be on this panel.
Yes. Thank you to all three of you for being here. I'm going to start with Corey. I'm going to start with Vail Resorts, and I'm going to take a step back. And Corey, pre-COVID, because obviously we know that COVID was pretty damaging as the ski resort industry shut down, the tourist industry shut down. So we know what we were going through as COVID began and shut down things. But going before that, I'm curious to hear what you observed within your employee base as far as mental health needs are concerned.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Appreciate the question and appreciate being here. I think pre-pandemic, I've been holding this job as a wellness manager for Vail Resorts for about 6+ years. And really, what we observed and what we wanted to address is an increased awareness of what resources we provided as a company. Every employee, every dependent, every roommate of a Park City employee has access to 6 no-cost mental health sessions per year. And what we've always kind of strived to do is increase awareness about that resource and get folks aware of what is provided to them as an employee. And they get that day one. Doesn't matter how many hours a week they work. It doesn't matter what their insurance is. That's a benefit immediately allocated to employees. So almost from the jump, we wanted to make people aware of that resource. We wanted to make it as easy as possible for people to access that. And we've tried to push that out through campaigns, through kind of our mobile device. But really, we want employees talking to other employees about what's available and then being comfortable turning to one another to try and help each other out. So I would say really the biggest focus for us is just been getting word out that the resources are available.
Okay. Excellent, thank you. And now I'm going to kind of jump forward, obviously, from what we've learned and what you've been able to observe post-pandemic, and just tell us a little bit about what Vail Resorts provides to support you, as far as how many are on your team specific to mental health wellness, and do you see Vail offering additional support that would further enhance the work that you think it would be necessary, obviously, to help increase the awareness and education resources?
Yeah, thank you for that question. We certainly didn't set up our program. We call it Epic Wellness. We didn't set it up with a pandemic in mind. And that being said, some of what we've created does work well from a scalable perspective, to try to help people regardless of what's going on in the community or in the world. We made some pretty major shifts though to stay on point, providing support in a virtual world. So it was amazing, Brian. Within like a week, we shifted what we call our preferred providers. So those are local mental health professionals that our employees, dependents, roommates can contact directly in Park City, in and around the area, and schedule sessions with them. They shifted their service of care virtually within a week. And the whole field really did that, which was amazing. So yeah, folks have been accessing care through tech, and that's worked really well. We also launched a text-based resource. Same thing, employees, dependents, roommates all have access to text-based support now, a chat function with mental health. I couldn't have imagined, 15 years ago in my grad program, I was talking about text and chat-based therapy, and that would even be an option. And it's come really far, and it seems to be early and anecdotally landing well for people across the country. So we've added that feature. We've also at Park City at the resort created what we call our Epic Wellness Captains. And those are folks embedded in the resort who are pretty versed in mental health, and really allocate time and energy to connect with employees, to connect with their managers, to troubleshoot, to advocate, to destigmatize mental health throughout the pandemic, and something we'll hold on to after.
Excellent. Thank you for helping to set the stage a little bit and provide us with what Vail Resorts has provided you. Technology is a wonderful thing. Obviously, we're all in different places right now doing this over Zoom. As Betty mentioned, this is live on Facebook. And so we're able to tap into those resources, just like it sounds like Vail is able to tap into technology to make sure that employees are communicating with each other, employees are communicating with a team like yours or the human resources, to make sure that communication is going forward, and people that are needing those services or help, are aware of it and able to get it. So thank you. I wanted to start with you and kind of the larger employer here today. And I do want to flip over and move over to JK, who's on the other side of things. As we can say it, he's a small business operator, obviously, compared to Vail. Before I head over to you, JK, though, and learn a little bit more about your observations of your employee base, I do want to turn to Jennifer. As I mentioned, Jennifer recently came to Park City from Arizona in the middle of the pandemic and heads our Chamber of Commerce. So welcome. Hopefully we get to see you in person sooner than later. It seems like we're heading that way. But just curious to hear, Jennifer, what resources, we could say initiatives, best practices that you brought from your experience in Sedona within the mental health space when you're dealing with smaller businesses when you were there in Arizona.
Thanks for that question, Brian. Sedona is really so well known for the wellness aspect of the community, and it's really an integral part of the fiber and the fabric of the community there. And when I moved here to Park City, it reminded me that wellness is really, it's so broad when you think about creating culture. And I've been doing a lot of thinking about that coming into a new community and a new organization, is creating a respectful culture. And I find that we have that, a very strong culture here in our community. and very strong values. And when you think about mental health in the workforce and you think about our community, to me, I think about it more at a higher level of overall wellness and the importance of wellness to our workforce and to our community, whether that's mental health or emotional support or financial support or professional or personal development for our employees. So I think what I bring is a view of sustainable tourism and what role our employees and our community plays in sustainable tourism. I think organizations like the Chamber or destination marketing organizations tend to do the economy really well and tend to focus on our businesses really well. Where I'd like to explore and expand our efforts is really looking at the intersection of the role tourism plays in the wellness of our overall community and the quality of life for our residents, which of course includes our employees and the role that they play in enhancing quality of life and enhancing visitor experience, which ultimately creates a thriving economy. So I'm anxious to be part of this conversation and to be part of the culture building to really sort of remove the stigma of mental health in our community, especially for our employees, and encourage our employers about the benefits of bringing wellness programs into their place of work. And they don't have to be expensive. They don't have to be exhaustive. It's the little things to show that we care about our people.
And that's what we were talking about when I introduced, today's topic, sustainability, as far as obviously Park City and the business it's in obviously of tourism, but it doesn't work without the healthy mental health resources out there for our employees to be able to tap into, and just for our general community members to tap into. So sustainability from the business standpoint, but also sustainability from the individual standpoint that's supporting that business. Thank you for that. That's very helpful. And we're going to tap into some of the wellness and different aspects that you just mentioned. I'll come back around, but I do want to move over to JK. JK, Jennifer, Corey, Betty, and myself, we were able to listen in our pre-panel discussion a few weeks ago and learn a little bit about your experiences with some of your employees, other employees of other business owners that have asked you to step in, just basically with your interest and your level of care for the Main Street business community, for the service industry as a whole. Can you tell a few stories, a couple of stories about what you're observing to shareholders, such as Jennifer, who's heading up the Chamber, and other shareholders and other stakeholders? Jennifer mentioned destination tourism and marketing companies that are tuning in today, because some people may not be as aware as far as some of the intricacies that you're seeing and observing of the workforce. So would like to hear what you have to say and what you've observed.
So again, thank you for having me here. This is very dear to my heart. I have family issues with mental illness that go back generations. I am known here in Park City as the guy who owns Flanagan's, and that's obviously why I got invited here today. But I'm also the owner of River's Edge Campground. I developed this campground to solve seasonal housing. When I came to town 12 years ago, my wife, who was a semi-local here had grown up in Utah, told me that there was a problem with seasonal housing. And I kind of laughed and said, that's easy to fix. And I came into town without any stigma. And I created a campground that houses 200 to 300 seasonal workers. That's the first thing I did. Now that's over in Wasatch County. And I'm not trying to pound myself on the chest. I want this group to understand that I have about 75 seasonal employees here at Flanagan's, and I house 200 to 300 seasonal employees for the last 12 years. I would be terribly remiss if I didn't tip my hat to Vail and to Altera. I have been intimately involved with these J1s because of my family history. I'm very sensitive to this. And with being the landlord and around all these kids for 12 years, I have seen our county, and I am just so impressed with what the county council understands with the complexities that we have to deal with to move forward. And I am so encouraged by the way the county council understands it and is looking for two solutions. Doesn't sit there as years ago we used to do and just say the roadblocks. Connect has a great deal to do with this, but without a doubt, Vail and Altera have put their money where their mouth is and have provided such service along with this incredibly generous community we know as Park City. So whereas, let me go back 5 years, where I had a problem with somebody, whether it's the campground or in my work, or it was up the street and, you know, somebody from a different restaurant was calling me because they know I have some insights into where the services are. The services are incredible where we've come from 5 years ago. 5 years ago, we had a problem with a kid. You know where he went? He went to the jail. We put him in the jail. This was 5 years ago. So to have these services and to have these groups and to have the community together and advancing what we've done in these 5 years is incredible. So I want to start there. Obviously, with the coronavirus, it really propelled depression and mental illness. And unfortunately, I know 3 people that aren't with us anymore that we tried to reach out to. We knew there were services, but we just still didn't have the ability or the skill set to break through and to get them help. And these people knew that we had these services now. So I know our focus is really on how do we get the word out to our service workers, because still that's an issue that we all need to address, to share with people what today offers here in Summit County. So as far as trying to get through to them, I think it's two reasons why I'm here is to try and get the word out more. Mm-hmm. You know, City Hall lost just a wonderful human being recently. And I'm not going to get into any names, but Terry Orr wrote an incredible article where she addressed that this incredible human being also had some demons, and that the children allowed her to mention this. And I know we have laws and we have these employee laws, and I'm at a stage where, you know, I just want to say when these people pass, and God bless these children that allowed her to tell the truth, we need to be, I know we need to be respectful of their parents and their families and everything, but if these people had a problem, it would, I'm so angry that we lose these people, that we address the laws and we basically lie. We basically lie. Oh, he had a heart attack. Oh, he ruptured ulcer that got bad. No. You know, these were opiate addicts or whatever, you know, issues they had, and they ended up dying. And I think if we're going to be impactful, I really would like to see us be more honest at their services and when they pass and in their obituaries. I'd just like to see it. And I know that that's radical, but I think, you know, certainly the message would get out in a much more powerful way if we did that.
No, thank you for that. What I'm hearing is, you know, the word sharing, obviously. And so I'm just trying to connect now. We have a Chamber of Commerce, we have Vail Resorts, we have Flanagan's, you know, different size businesses, and then obviously tied in through an entity like the Chamber, but sharing resources as Corey mentioned, using technology. Maybe there's a way a larger resort, that you mentioned is helping with affordable housing, might be able to help a Main Street business that's a small business operator, maybe helping with some of that same technology, because an employee at Flanagan's may also be working at Vail Resorts, right? Or move from Flanagan's to Vail Resorts or the other way. So the more that we can kind of make this a cohesive system and get that education resources out there, that's something that that's a takeaway that I'm gonna work on with Connect as we circle around after these meetings. I'm going to hone in a little bit on why people are here. Jennifer mentioned it, in Arizona, the wellness community. Obviously in Park City, we have this incredible outdoor lifestyle. And so I'm going to go back to Corey, but just, I'll open this to Jennifer and JK as well. We're in a ski town, and when I ride up the lifts, I see something like know the zone and make sure you're separated. I see the safety patrol. I see the ski patrol. So Corey, is there something that you see coming down the pipeline when you're onboarding employees, or just in the education that's out there in the lift lines, that's coming from ski patrol, that's coming from the different signage on lifts, as far as our brain is just, it's malleable, right? I mean, it takes one knock. And I know there's a board member at Connect that's why she's involved. It took a few concussions and it changed how her kid was acting, right? And it led to other issues down the road. So we want that huck yeah mentality. We want to go big and we want to see all those jumps and do all those tricks. But is there something that might be coming down the pipeline to say, wait a minute, you just can't go out there and not be thinking about the consequences? Yeah, a broken arm, you're lucky, right? A twisted knee, you're lucky. But if you hit your head once, it can be damaging. So just curious if that's coming down the pipeline, Corey, from a resort like Vail.
Yeah, I appreciate Brian, and I'll take it from like a physical injury, neurological injury, and just kind of decision making perspective. I'd say it's something that we've been trying to do and trying to empower managers to really know their people and know their baselines. One of the first things that we learn in grad school, I am a psychologist by training, is to ask the question, why now? Right? If we recognize that something is different for somebody, why now? Did they bang their head? Is it substances? Are they having, sleep issues? Whatever it is. So we've worked and we continue to work to try to empower managers we talk about the language of care and connect. So natural things, naturally care about people, that happens normally, and then connect with them and then connect them to resources when and if that is needed. The only way they can know something's off is if they actually know people. The only way they could get employees, 18 to 22 to begin to think more consciously about maybe how they huck themselves off a mountain is to have that interpersonal connection. So that's really the stance that we try to take on it, is to empower supervisors and then empower peers to connect with one another. And our ideal state is what we would call a wellness environment, where that's happening naturally, right? Like I think people will connect and process with therapists. I think therapy is great, but the real place where people go is to their friends, family, and loved ones. So if we can empower that in relation to every aspect of functioning, that's great. That would be a win for us.
Thank you. And Corey, JK, Jennifer, do you want to add? I'm not sure, Jennifer, if you've been thinking about this as you come here and you're starting to get immersed in our community and understand, obviously, the wonderful things that Park City has to offer as far as lifestyle for those that live here and are working here. If this is something that's starting to come into conversations from the chamber and just the overall business community.
I think it is. I think it's more common now during COVID and will be post-COVID, because I think employers are really starting to realize the stresses of our employees and our workforce. We spend most of our waking hours at work, and employees bring a lot of the stresses from outside work into the workplace. And I think the more that employers can recognize those stresses, whether they be COVID related or health related, emotional, mental, financial. And the more that employers can be thoughtful about creating programs that help ease some of those stresses for our employees, the stronger our workforce will be and the stronger those relationships will be. It's really, I think wellness in the workforce is really about a mutual respect, so that our employees know that we really care about them and we don't necessarily just care about their work product, but we care that we're easing some of those stresses, whether it's flexible workplace or flexible hours or the ability to go pick up their child after school or from sports. You know, it's these things that now employers are thinking of in a new way, especially given COVID and the onset of remote working and more flexible hours. I think it's definitely top of mind, and especially here. I mean, being a newcomer, new resident, just about 4 months old, it's not easy, especially during COVID. It's not easy to make new friends right now. It's rather isolating for many. It's nearly impossible to find a place to live. And when you have all of these stresses on top of work, on top of COVID, it adds up. And I think the employers can help ease some of that.
So
Thank
I'd
you.
just like to jump
Yeah.
in. Where
Go ahead, JK.
where I see we can help and we can do more is with the peers, not necessarily the people who are suffering. Corey's the big bad wolf. They want to protect their buddy who, you know, got drunk all night and is making bad choices and is emotionally unstable. They want to protect them. They'll cover their shift. They'll do something to an extent. And then what they think they're doing is they think they're doing this person a favor. And then, you know, there's usually an emotional issue with a relationship, and bam, it's over. They protected him to some degree as being their friend, you know, at 25 years old. A lot of these kids too are looking for a family. And Jennifer's 100% right. The county's got it. The affordable housing situation is basically over. Our houses are worth $2.5 million, the medium house. If you're trusted enough to walk into one of these apartments, 2-bedroom apartment, minimum 8 people living in them right now. This is the way it's going. And yes, the county's on it, and they have a great program coming up with 1,100 beds with Vail in the county over there at Canyon. So we're moving to it, but we're way behind the curve. So you have these housing pressures where they're living on top of each other, and then they're jumping on transportation and they're an hour late. Now I know Corey's really nice, and I'm okay when they're an hour late and they were on the bus. But if it happens regularly, I have a lot of neighbors that aren't so okay, you know, neighbors here on Main Street that aren't so okay that they're an hour late, you know, and they have this super special event. So you have these pressures on these kids. Then you throw in some bad choices and a troubled relationship. Are you kidding me? Look at the pressure that's on them. One other thing I'll mention is, you know, some of them really do like me, and I do reach out and try and help. Every single person that's ever come to me, I've given help. And the reputation's out there that, you know, I'm somewhat cool. But I went over to that Colby house a couple of years ago. You remember the Colby house? There were 120 kids living in there with 2 bathrooms. Can you imagine the mental health issues? 2 bathrooms, 120 kids. I'm not exaggerating. 1 kitchen. Can you imagine that? I mean, that's how they're living. Now, most of our community that's in those $2.5 million medium houses don't want to see it. They don't want to see it. Okay, so now you've got the absolute worst environment possible for mental health with these kids. And they're finding, and they're looking to try and be cool, and they're looking to, hang out, and they're making bad choices. And then they're working really hard for us, Corey, and they're doing, then they're at breaking points. And anybody with a little mental instability, this is not paradise, guys. Let's talk about it for us. Oh my God, what a dream, what a quality of life that we have. But it's certainly not that way for our seasonal workers.
Thank you, JK. You talked about the word pressure, and obviously, we as a community, there's a lot of plans. I know that our mayor was speaking last night as far as the future of Park City. Olympics are out there, all types of growth plans. Jennifer, just curious, making this public, right? Whether it's to our tourists that are coming in, that are using the services that our service industry is providing to them, other shareholders, lay leaders, how do we is there a risk, I guess, to making it more public that Park City wants this to come to the forefront and wants, let's just say, if we're competing for tourism dollars with a resort in France or with Summit County, Colorado, or with, a resort town in Tahoe region, is there a risk to us making this more public and bringing some of the things that JK is mentioning as far as number of family members or friends living in one home within the service industry sector? Is there a risk to bringing this and making it more public?
I think you have to think about the audiences, right? I think it's going to be helpful to have this conversation within our community. I don't think it's something that we would want to promote ourselves as outside of the community. But part of what sustainable tourism is it's about balance, right? It's about balancing the quality of life, the economy, the environment, and the visitor experience. But it's also about connections. And I think that we could probably, as a community, do a better job of creating more meaningful connections, whether those connections are with visitors and locals, or employees and locals, or visitors to the land, or residents to the land, or visitors to our values as a community. I think when we start creating more meaningful connections and do a better job of telling the story of tourism, whether that's featuring a local business owner, whether that's featuring employees, and creating more awareness, what I think that does is it really brings the community together rather than having sort of this us versus them mentality of businesses versus residents or locals versus visitors. As we kind of try to create more connections and more awareness and really show the faces of the people in the community, we create better awareness for our strengths and our opportunities of where we can grow and where we can develop as a community. And to me, that's all part of the vision of sustainable tourism in Park City.
I'm hearing compassion, I'm hearing understanding, I'm hearing awareness. Really, really huge topics for me as a board member, like I said, to take away, to be thinking about in future board meetings as far as how we can continue this dialogue in this discussion and include, like I said, kind of the stakeholders and the shareholders to make sure that we're doing the best thing for our community. And you keep hitting on sustainable tourism because it just doesn't work unless the industry that's supporting the tourism industry, unless it's that workforce specifically, unless they're stable and unless they're happy and they know that we have their back, and that JK, you mentioned it, just what the city and the council are doing. It's going to be something that's going to be a top of mind, I think, going forward. Affordable housing, transportation. I do it all the time. I work at Deer Valley as a mountain host, and before COVID, if you got there early enough to work, Deer Valley provided a bagel and cream cheese or some cereal. and I'm driving past people at the bus stop in uniform, and I know that I can get them there quicker in my car than the bus. So I'm picking up people in my car all the time because I'm thinking, gosh, I bet that they really want to get there and maybe have a little bit of relaxed time and have and be able to warm up, you know, a little bit and get that bagel. So I'm picking people up in the car all the time because I'm thinking, I want to help them. I want to increase their quality of life in Park City, in you know, here in town, because I know what they've got to do. They're probably working this job, and they're probably going home, and they're probably going to go work a shift in the evening as well. So you know, so all of those topics that our city and county council and chamber are working on, as far as helping out that this workforce, I think is really, really important. So I'm going to go back to Corey. Corey, just curious, obviously Vail, with its incredible benefits, you mentioned Epic Wellness. Obviously a company like that is offering 401k and matches. Just curious if we're shifting from more of like, here's your contribution that the company is giving, to more of like a benefit where it's a choice that fits and is customized and tailored to that demographic. Because maybe a senior executive says, yeah, I want my match and I like my healthcare, and this is important to me, and my family might be solid and I don't need to worry about it. But you know what? For a different demographic, the 401k isn't as important. I need more money for my family and towards, maybe it is mental health, or maybe it's just healthcare in general. Are we seeing a shift from a large employer like Vail or others out there, as far as how that contribution, how that benefit is going to different demographics of employees?
I don't know if it's a shift. I think, you know, speaking from the mental health perspective, and kind of honing back to what JK was addressing, I think there's a definite commitment from Vail Resorts to be assertive with mental health, and be pliable. You know, that's been, to me, you know, being with the company now like 6+ years, that's been the biggest draw, where I could propose certain things, you know, whether it's going from a 3-session EAP model to a 6-session model, implementing text therapy, like whatever it is. And they've been responsive to it. Well, we've been responsive to it, right? And it's, I think some of it is, you know, best practice for people, and I think some of it's best practice financially. So yeah, my team continues to grow. The company continues to grow, and I think it does create new opportunity. And that's my draw with the job, is like, yeah, we want to grow it and manage what we've been able to achieve. You know, we've expanded our EAP utilization by like 500%, right? That's great. And we want to maintain that. We want to add that to our new resorts, but we also want to sit there and look at trends and staying ahead of mental health trends, and say, how could we figure out ways in which we could apply that to our employees and their families? And I've seen my supervisors be very responsive to that. So I'm excited about where that could go. You know, I think where it gets complicated is kind of like what employees opt into for plans. If they opt into insurance plans versus if they opt out, if they opt into 401k versus if they opt out. And we try to make that very attractive for people and really try to promote it, but folks still have to decide to sign into certain things, if that makes sense.
And JK, I'll just, you know, again, going to the other side, as far as an operator of a different size, just curious as far as what, you know, your workforce is asking for, or what you're able to educate them as far as the resources that are out there on the health benefit side and on the mental health side, if that's something that comes up.
So I've seen a substantial willingness of my employees to use the resources that are out here over the last 3 years. It's been a monumental shift. And I educate them with the app, that's the Safe Utah app, so that they have it available on their cell phones. And we do this when we do our meetings, our preseason meetings and our education. We'll go for a week where we do 3 hours with everybody on different topics. And one of the topics we've included, and it's in our handbook, and people know that there's this app they can download and they can have help. So if they want to keep it totally private, And then we also educate the friends, like I'm mentioning here today, that you're doing them a favor and you guys are partying and you're doing it till 3 a.m. But some people are not going to have the stability you have mentally, and they're going to have issues. So, really, we question them. And we also provide them, and I think it's part of that application and that website, is to question people, to be more bold. And you hear somebody saying they want to hurt themselves, or I don't even care, I'm going to huck it off that 90-foot cliff, to ask them, okay, risk versus reward, are we thinking right, or were we just on a good bender here last night, and now we're going to take this thing to a limit that we're not capable of, and we're just going to do it to be whatever. And so you need to have that, start that conversation. And again, that conversation doesn't happen with me. I mean, as soon as I'm talking about it with you, oh man, they're protecting themselves. I can't get caught. Oh, how did JK find out? It comes into a whole different thing. But if it's their peer, they listen and they'll have a conversation and they'll respond to it. So I don't know how, Vail and Deer Valley deal with that. Maybe they have special team leaders, and that's what I started with my managers and my assistant managers. If I see something nowadays, I probably take a step back, and then I ask my managers to step in, who are much closer in age, who hang out with them, who do Tuesday nights at O'Shucks with them together, and that whole team. So it comes at them much softer. It's like a warm introduction. You have a mutual friend instead of just a cold introduction. And that seems to be working. So those are some of the things that we've evolved with in just understanding and dealing with this on a daily basis. And the reason I'm dealing with it much more than everyone else is statistically. Look I'm around 300 kids or 300 employees. Most of them are 21 to 35 years old. And most of them are looking for, they're looking for a family. A lot of them are looking for that family thing. And Lord knows, when you're in these groups, there's a lot of bad choices that can be made.
Hey, Brian.
Go ahead.
So sorry to cut you off, but Jake teed that up so well, and I think he's so on point. We from the jump, we've implemented this program through Epic Wellness called Caring for a Coworker, and we use our employee mobile device, we use trainings, we're starting to cut videos, and it's targeted to do exactly what JK is talking about, to say, like, you're an employee, you're worried about a peer on anything related to, like, transitioning to a new job, to a new town, to suicide prevention and drug and alcohol abuse. Here are ways in which we're going to encourage you to try to engage with them to help them out.
Okay. Yeah. And JK, what you had to say, and Corey following up, I mean, I'm hearing like intermediary, like I wonder if this becomes, and I'm kind of driving this towards Jennifer, who talks to all different business operators. If we have an intermediary position where that is someone wants to step up and be that person for that company, or there's multiple people in that position, depending on how large the company is, that say, hey, I care about my coworkers and I want to make sure that I'm engaging with them, not just from what they're supposed to be doing tonight as far as my server and my busser and my bartender, but what's going on, how their living situation, how they're getting to work, and starting to have that conversation come out. And so, Jennifer, I'm thinking of you now. Is there a takeaway here that we can start to see if businesses are willing to have this conversation, as JK is, to say, hey, can we start to have this again as a normal part of our onboarding, that we can put that person in place, or those people in place that are having these conversations and checking in on each other and having that a normal part of business operation, just like there are other protocols that they have in place.
Mm-hmm. I think it's important to have a holistic approach when addressing, quality of life and quality of the workforce and our workforce needs. So absolutely, I'm not sure what that looks like in the future, but I sense here, just in my very short time, that employers, they want to do the right thing. they care about their employees, they care about their people, and sometimes it's just a matter of making time to figure out a new program, or having and knowing what tools are available and what resources are available. And we do that really well as an organization by partnering with groups like Connect Summit County and other resources and groups in the community to educate our businesses about what's available and give them the tools that they need to make it easy for them to implement programs like this. And I do have to say that I've been so impressed with the resources that are available here in the Park City area in Summit County. It's head and shoulders above what I've seen in other places across the country. And it's been really heartwarming to see the conversations that are happening in this community. They're very deep and they're respectful, even though, you know, we may not always agree. I've been just incredibly impressed with that. And I know that our businesses, just in the very short time that I've been here, they want to do the right thing. They want to keep their employees happy and healthy. And, you know, when you have happy and healthy employees, you have longevity, you have increased productivity, you have less turnover, less cost as it relates to hiring and recruitment and retaining employees. So it's an important conversation to have, and we certainly want to help educate the businesses on how they can do that better in our community. We'll be part of that.
Excellent, thank you. And we've got about 9 minutes left, because I do want to leave time for Betty to share and put a screen up with some of these resources that we're talking about. The question that I'll ask, and again, anyone can chime in any order, is just, what would you like to share with decision makers that you need in order to support this workforce in Summit County, in Park City? Is there anything that we haven't touched on yet that you'd like to get out there, and, you know, talking to me as a board member so that I can carry it forward, and obviously talking to others that are listening? But what do you need? What would be helpful so that your workforce can be mentally sound and can have a sustainable workforce? Corey, JK, do you want to start?
Thanks, JK. I'll jump on it. We talked about this somewhat when we connected in the past, and I think Connect does such a tremendous job of it. But really to continue to promote mental health navigation, like programs within the community that help folks navigate the kind of complexities of mental health resources, what's available, what's not available within a community, and do that in real time and really be able to implement that. I think that's enormous. I know that's been a focus for Connect, and Epic Promise is our nonprofit. Katz Amsterdam Foundation has supported that a ton. So I think that's a really big one. And then the other side of that component is crisis management, which I know Summit County's been rolling out, Connect's been really involved in, but basically something that can help people, again, in real time and in real ways, to keep them out of the ER. That's from every component, that's a tough place for people to land from a mental health perspective. And if they need to in certain situations, better there than other scenarios. But if we could really empower crisis mobile stabilization teams, which I know is getting ramped up in Summit, that to me is a game changer and a big community partnership that could really help. And one last plug, I'd be remiss if I didn't do it. Like I mentioned, we have those preferred providers. There's so many tremendous therapists in Park City, down to Salt Lake, out in Heber, who support our employers, our communities, and hearing their voices and keeping them empowered to do the work that they're passionate about doing is so important too.
Thank you. JK, anything to add?
Yeah, I don't want to minimize the complexity of what we're dealing with here. I do want to focus on the solutions. I do want to address it. we've known affordable housing is, forever. We've known, but we never got ahead of it. And now with the propulsion of what's happened to our town since COVID and the wealth gap exploding, we just, the land prices and everything, the realities of being a businessman, to what you can do with a piece of property versus, doing something on affordable housing, that gap is widening. I mean, it's bigger than the Grand Canyon today. So obviously we have to pull together as a community. We have to stay united and stay focused that these are our goals, but we also have to be realistic. So, I don't think we're going to build a village that's going to provide everything for, affordable housing for mentally unstable people and stuff. So we really have to focus on transportation and being able to get a $15 an hour, if we ever get there, employee to get in and out and enjoy Park City and enjoy their life here. A 70,000 person employee to enjoy their lives the way we've been blessed to see, and to the friendships and everything, without these pressures that create, instability in our beloved workforce. I mean, and so I think we really need to prioritize these solutions, and we need to go after them, and we need to go harder. There's just no question about it. And for me, all these pillars we have with social equity that are and affordable housing and this connect and mental health and providing for the underprivileged in our community, the real basis for it that we need right now, we really need to attack, is transportation. We need to be able to get people in and out so that, they can get to work on time, so that they can have a sustainable way to get in and out of here. We are the economic engine here. Vail, Park City, Main Street. We're talking about the 3 biggest taxpayers in the county right there. So, I mean, that's who we are. And we have to be able to solve that for our sustainability. The other thing is, I would just say, we have to welcome guests, and we have to welcome this new influx of primary residents. These are locals now. These are locals. We have to continue with our kindness and our generosity to them, and bring them into this, so that, a lot of them are well-heeled individuals that can help us. So we have to share a little bit on some of the things that, we all need to stay united and focused on.
I think sharing is a good word. I was able to take 6 kids from the Latino community skiing at Vail, and Vail, paid for their equipment and their ticket through one of the programs. And, these kids aren't complaining about the grooming and comparing Deer Valley's grooming and Park City's grooming. And, we were waiting in pretty decent lines. It was a Sunday, and the kids were just happy. And it was just so refreshing to be out and not hear, any of the negativity that's out there. And my takeaway is, we just need to make sure that we're educating our locals that do live here, and especially the amount of new people that have moved here that maybe haven't picked up a park record yet, and maybe aren't attending, the meetings yet that are on Zoom, or maybe haven't joined a board yet, and I'm optimistic that they'll be good citizens and involved in our community, right? They have the time, they have the interest, hopefully, to be here and make a positive impact. But I think we need to make sure that we're bringing it up a little bit as far as what's going on behind the scenes, and tap into, what COVID has kind of brought to Park City, which is an incredible amount of wealth, an incredible amount of smart people that are moving here from all over. And I think we have an incredible community to tap into. I'm kind of looking at Jennifer now, is thinking like, hey, you're talking to business owners and new people coming in that are the patrons of these businesses, is maybe there's a way to increase the education of what's going on. What are the key issues? I was a member of leadership. JK was a classmate of mine. We're class 23. And you get to spend time. We were in Boulder, and we got to learn what's going on with Boulder and their affordable housing. So making sure that we're getting programs like this out to so many new people in our community that can help continue to make a difference. I think that's my takeaway, is making sure that we're just educating our community about what makes the community tick. And that's our service industry. And they're working really, really hard. And they've got other issues that sometimes we don't think about. So with that, I can't thank Jennifer and Corey and JK enough for your comments and for your discussion. I'm going to turn it over to Betty to share some of these resources that we're talking about that are out there. But it's been impactful for me, again, as a relatively new board member, to connect. I have learned an immense amount, and I've got so many takeaways to talk about with my fellow board members and our staff. So thank you to all three of you. I'm really, really, really grateful.
Wow, thank you, Brian, and thank you for all of the thought and care that you put into creating this panel and having this amazing conversation. Brian actually had the amazing idea for this slide that we are sharing with you today, that we've actually gotten to share at every single one of our discussions because of this awesome idea. So we want to let you know that you can access mental health resources through our peer navigation services at Connect Summit County. We have peer navigators that speak both Spanish and English, and they can be reached by phone, by text, or by email. So whatever way you feel most comfortable talking to someone, please reach out. These are peers. They are people who are trained to listen to you. They are trained to know and understand the resources that exist in our community, specifically for whatever challenge you are experiencing. This is a non-crisis line, and so it might take, an hour or two or a day to get back to you, just depending on our schedules. But for crisis, as we were talking about before, and as Corey so wonderfully brought up, we do have a mobile crisis outreach team that is a crisis line. You can call any crisis line in Summit or Wasatch County, like you would call 911, and you may ask for the mobile crisis outreach team to be the ones to respond to your call. And the mobile crisis outreach team is open from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. And we just wanted to make sure that you have that information. We want to thank all of you for joining us today. Thank you so much for joining in, for listening in, for being part of this discussion. And because we appreciate that you were here and you most likely have some feedback for us about this, I'm putting into the chat our event feedback survey. We would love for you to take 60 seconds and just let us know how we did for any of the sessions that you attended. I've gotten to see a lot of repeat folks come into these meetings, and I can't tell you how grateful we are for your support. We are also a nonprofit. And because of this, what we're committed to is creating programming and an outreach that is free to the public. So if you appreciate the programming and what Connect Summit County offers in our community, we invite you to become a donor today, become part of our philanthropic mission to end stigma and create a well-informed community with access to mental health resources for everyone. So with that, thank you all so much for being here. Thank you, Jennifer, JK, and Corey, for your amazing insights and your passion. And thank you, Brian, for not only being a board member of Connect Summit County, but for being an active change maker in this community. So take good care, everyone. And if you'd like to, please join us at 3:40 for the Summit County Council meeting, where we are going to present our findings of the Attitudes and Access survey that we conducted in the summer of 2020 and show your support for Connect Summit County and mental health through our county council. Thank you all so much, and I hope that you have an amazing rest of your day. Take good care, all.